Please pray with me. As we come together in this beautiful space, we are so blessed and so grateful. So we come together in community, knowing that each one of us is one with that presence. Therefore, we are one with one another. It is all one, all together. There is only love. There is only that one. So in remembering this, we remember that we hold nothing but love for one another, no matter what the outside shows. We hold that love. In doing so, we spread that love. We spread the positivity throughout the world, little by little, inch by inch. Might be slowly, but we're doing it. And it's very, very important that we do. So we know this to be true, and we know too that today's beautiful service takes many hands, and we appreciate everyone who is part of that. Our technical staff, our ushers, our practitioners, our hospitality, who've just a beautiful job out there. It's so beautiful. So, and we thank Reverend Jen, of course, because her message always speaks to our heart. So in all this, we are so very grateful, knowing that each and every person here is blessed. All those who are not here are blessed as well, no matter how they decide to honor that one. However it is, we bless that, and we bless them. So in that knowing and in that beingness, we are grateful, we are thankful, we are deep in love with life and one another. And in our gratitude, we say together, and so it is. Amen. Okay, I have a few, almost lost that. We have a few words of inspiration today, and it is from Christian Sorensen, Living from the Mountaintop. When you live in alignment with your soul, loving who you truly are, you will bring your realization back into oneness with people, the planet, and the universe. You'll live knowing an internal peace and be a loving difference maker on the planet. From Roger Teal, from This Life is Joy. The invisible intelligence that creates anything dwells both within and around that creation. Therefore, we all dwell within the dance of the invisible, creative genius of this universe. Our bodies and our personal awareness are expressions of this infinite oneness. And from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, my body is the temple of the living God. It is spiritual substance. Since God is my life and God is eternal, my life is eternal. I cannot be separated from God, from good, from perfection. The supreme ruler, omnipresent, exists at the center of my thought and has the power to make all things new.
We believe and we teach that God is all there is. Take a moment and consider that. God is all there is. That means that everything is of God. That means that everything is an expression of God, is embraced by God, is surrounded by God, is filled by God. Everything. Quite a thing to think about. And what that means is that sometimes we look out into the external world and we have dualistic appearances. We see things that don't quite fit. We consider something as possibly evil. And we begin to go through that process of maybe separation and trying to put the God stuff over here and everything else over here. And that's not how it works. That's not how it's designed. Our relationship with Spirit is either discordant or harmonious, but it is a relationship. and it is with spirit, because God is in all things. So today and this week, we're going to reassess how we choose to show up in wonderful and loving relationship. And part of that relationship is what we know God to be and how we incorporate that into our lives. What does it mean to us? Because what we're looking at is that idea of spirituality. And spirituality is about a constructed atmosphere of goodness, truth, beauty, harmony, and reality. And this atmosphere comes to each one of us individually to the degree that we believe. That we believe. How we understand what we understand. How we use the invisible principle and presence of spirit. How we tap into that invisible intelligence. When we realize the unity of God and all of its creation, then we can demand for ourselves freedom. We can be open and emphatic. We can have a spiritual reaction to all of our success without question, without doubt, because we know who we are, we know who and what God is, and we know our place in this world. And this brings us to that idea of complete unity. Ernest Holmes spoke something to that effect in the Science of Mind textbook. He also, as our founder, went out into the world to seek the commonalities, the common threads of the major religions. And in doing this, he discovered that of all the faiths, each one had an essence, an energy, a higher power. Every single one. And with that, we came to that realization is that, yes, of course, there is only one God, only one spirit, only one power. You can call it whatever you choose, but there is the one. And so that's where we begin our talk today. Our global vision for a world, our global vision by our, I mean Centers for Spiritual Living, has these words to say. We envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. We envision a world where we live and we grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. We envision a world that works for everyone. Let me just talk for a moment about that word envision. That means that we, each one of us, carry this in our hearts. Each one of us sees it. And it means that when we see something happening, something that isn't working, that doesn't fit into this global vision, we don't just pretend it's not happening, but we choose to believe there's something more at work here. There's something deeper coming forth. There's something greater happening. That's what this is about. That is how we envision a world that works for everyone. And we choose to believe some very simple statements. God is all there is. God is all there is. There is only one. We are expressions of that one. Therefore, we, my friends, are holy. We are holy. How beautiful is that? How does that move you a little bit? I mean, we hear it over and over again. We know this. We tend to tune it out. So it's always a great idea to just bring it forth again and just to really look at it. And what does this mean to each one of us today? Today, July 31st, the last day of July. What does it mean to you? How does this support you? Our founder gives us this quote: "People are truly meek or humble when we look at the grandeur of a mountain or the vastness of the ocean, or we think about the bigness of things. We don't become lost in the bigness, but we stand in awe before it. And when we do, something deep inside responds, and we become one with it all." Have you had that happen? Have you had an experience to be out in nature and something resonates within you and you feel like you are a part of all that you are seeing and all that is surrounding you? I'm sure you have at some time or another. I know I have. It's an incredible feeling to be in that place and to be in that space of awe. You can sit in a pasture. You can sit in your backyard. You can walk along a river. You can stand on the beach at the ocean. All of these things are here for us to enjoy and embrace. And I hesitate to think of the many times that I've driven down the road and passed something absolutely beautiful and did not see it. Didn't even connect with what was going on around me. And now this week we are reminded, so we have an opportunity to do something more about this. When I was small, my family moved from Ashiya, Japan to Colorado Springs, Colorado when I was 8 months old. And I spent much of my life in Colorado Springs. And those of you who've been to Colorado Springs know that the city is at the foot of Pikes Peak, a beautiful, incredible, powerful mountain. Now that mountain became something really important to me in my life, but I didn't know it back in those early years. And when I was 6 or 7, we moved to Alaska and spent about 3 years up there, and then we came right back to Colorado Springs. And we were driving down a street called Pikes Peak Avenue one afternoon, and I looked up and I could see the mountain, and it looked like the street, if we stayed on it, would run right into the mountain. And I remember sitting in the back seat of the car going, I've been dreaming about this. Now, I was 9 years old at the time. But while we were in Alaska, I had a dream over and over again of riding my bicycle down this street that was going to run right into this mountain. And from that point forward, I realized that maybe that had some significance to me. And it became a symbol for me. It actually became a symbol of God for me at some times in my life, because I could go outside and just look at it. I could get closer to it. I could commune with it. Because it was huge, it was magnificent, it was majestic, it was strength, it was consistency, because it was there every single day, every single night. And what I later came to learn was that I could take that essence, I could take that energy, I could take that connection that I was feeling, and I could carry it with me whether I could see the mountain or not. What is that thing for you? What is that place in nature? What is that significance for you? And maybe it's something in your home. Maybe it's even a place in your home, a place where you sit. Maybe it's a meditation table where you really feel that strong connection in spirit. This week, I encourage you to really tap into that, to really pay attention to that. There's an old story in the Hindu legend that there was a time when all beings were gods. But for some reason, all the beings began to abuse their godliness. And they upset the chief god, Brahma. He wasn't happy. He did not like what was going on. And so he called the council of gods together, and he said to them, we have got to find a place to hide the divinity, because these people are messing up all over the place. So we're going to hide their divinity, and then they have to go in search of it. Where should we hide it? And one of the council members said, let's bury it deep in the earth. And Brahma said, no, because we know how humans are. They'll run around digging up the earth here and there, searching everywhere. They'll make a mess of things. And one of the other gods said, well, let's sink it into the deepest ocean. And Brahma said, no, they'll learn to dive, and they'll go into the ocean, and they'll be seeking it out there. That's not going to work. And then some of the gods said, well, let's take it to the top of the highest mountain and hide it there. And Brahma said, well, you know what? Humans will eventually climb every mountain and take up their divinity. And all the gods said, well, then we give up. We don't know where you can hide it, that they won't find it. And Brahma thought for a moment, and he said, I know. We will hide their divinity deep within each one of them. They'll never think to look there. They will search for it here and there, but they will never, ever consider that it is within them. All the gods agreed that this was the perfect hiding place, and the deed was done. And since that day, humans have been going up and down the earth, digging, diving, climbing, exploring, searching for something that already lives within. The divinity lies within us all. If you do not get another thing today, get this. Get this. God is within you. Spirit, divine intelligence, universal wisdom, whatever you choose to call it, it is within you. It is expressing through you. You are of it, and it is of you. When I remember this, because sometimes I forget, I behave a little differently in the world. And that is one of the reminders for us, based on the Hindu story. So I did some research on what seems to happen to us that we kind of get into this place of separation, like they were talking about. People are going to go dig it up, and they're going to go to the mountaintop, and then you're going to try and capture it, and whatever those pieces of the process are. What is it that happens? And I found a really good speaker that gave me some insight on this. We have been taught that life begins at birth and that it ends at death. And we have been taught that the dash in the middle is the most important thing. And I have, over the years, I probably even taught it in some of my classes about what are you doing with the dash, folks? What's going on here? And this very idea is separating us from that concept of the divinity, because that's not the truth. Born dash died has to do with your experience of planet Earth, and that's it. Planet Earth is a place we go for education. We are eternal beings. We did not start somewhere, and we will not stop somewhere. We are eternal. We will continue to move forward. We will continue to evolve. We will continue to have all of these experiences. And at some point in time, maybe a couple of points in time, we'll become bold enough to check into planet Earth and learn some of those really tough, ugly lessons. But it's not about the dash. So pay attention to that, because you were here long before birth. And my friends, each one of us will be here long after we leave planet Earth. And that concept, that story, that truth for me is the reminder for me that I am of the divine. That there is more to who I am than just a human being wandering around on planet Earth for however many years, and then I just poof. Then I poof, I go away. We are creating that connection in our minds. We're creating that truth and connection in our hearts. It's important for us to align and be aware and recognize who we are. There are barriers that we let get in our way, however. There are things that get in our way that stop us from being an expression of love to another person. There are things that get in our way that stop us from receiving our good. And what Rumi says is your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it and embrace them. This is also why we pray, remember? We pray to remove the beliefs and the barriers within us. We're not telling God or asking God or demanding anything of God. We are going into that moment of prayer, that moment of connection, and we are aligning and we are looking at what's going on here that's getting in my way. That's the piece of it for us. How beautiful that is. This week I encourage you to tune in to any barriers that may be showing up in your lives, anything that may be getting in the way for you. I have a quote from Richard Rohr that says, "True religion is always a deep intuition that we are already participating in something very good. There is nothing to join, only something to recognize. You are already in the eternal flow of divine life." God did not create religion. Sometimes I wonder what this energy sees and hears from us as we're going through those wonderful pathways. Religion was created by humankind, human beings, to give us a list of to-dos and to-don'ts and you know, all of this wonderful stuff. And some places it's gone in directions we don't even want to think about, in some places not so much. But I remember my parents were part of a very fundamentalist church. They needed that. That belief system that they were a part of was critical to their very lives. It worked for them. And about the time I was a teenager, I was realizing it wasn't working for me. And one of the things that I didn't quite realize at the time was that we were never encouraged to go look outside of our particular church. This is the truth. Just settle your stuff down and do this. That's pretty much how I was brought up. And then one day I walked into a religious science center, and I heard a philosophy that I completely believe, and I had no idea it was a religion. And as many of you know who have studied our philosophy and studied Ernest Holmes, he didn't want to make it a church. He wasn't out to create a church. He was showing the world how you can live your life and live it successfully and beautifully. And he was encouraged to put some guidelines together to support the practitionership and to support the ministers and to support some of the standards and the consistencies and the values that we wanted to continue to teach. You don't have to join anything. We come together in community for connection. We come here for each other. We come here to love and edify one another. So I really thought that was really important. I was almost hesitant to use that today because it kind of says, you don't got to be here. But that's not what I'm saying, because we seek that a little bit differently. But, again, if that's what you took out of that, okay. So as we recognize this one and only God, and we recognize this connection we have to it, in it, of it, as it, surrounded by it and filled by it, as we do all of that, we realize that this is not a religion. I mean, you can use that term, absolutely. This is a relationship. This is my relationship with a power that is so great, it can support me in so many things. each one of us, each one of you, whether you are in this room or watching this online, you are here for a purpose. You are here by divine right action. You are here to live, support, love, be, whatever. Now, when I say purpose, a lot of us think, oh, what do I got to do? Do I have to go have an art show someplace, in Paris, somewhere? Do I need to run for political office? What does that mean to me that I need to be in this space, in this place of purpose? Touching the heart of another person, smiling at someone, handing them a bottle of water when they're sitting out on a corner in the heat, offering a smile, a kind word. That is our purpose. That is our purpose. Fred Rogers said, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of, there is something in yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. How beautiful is that? So let's make sure what we leave is a blessing. Let's make sure that what we leave is a gesture of kindness, a gesture of compassion and love. That's one of the things I like about Facebook. I haven't been on it that much, but every now and then somebody will post something on there or send me a message and tell me something I did or inspired in their lives, or just some kind of feedback that comes back to me. And it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Well, it's nice to hear it, but we're not going to hear it. We're not going to hear what we did for all of the people whose lives we've touched. We just get to know that we're living the life that we need to live, and we're going in the right direction, and we're supporting the process. Rumi says, no one looks for the stars when the sun is out. A person blended into God does not disappear. He or she, or they, is just completely soaked in God qualities. When you get up in the morning and the sun is out, and you can't see the stars, you do not go into a panic. We don't go looking for them. We don't freak out. We know the stars are where the stars are. We just can't see them because of the brilliant light in the sky. We don't even question it. We don't even think about it. But what I loved about this quote, and one of the reasons I used it today, is because it says, a person blended into God does not disappear. Okay, so here's a great analogy for you. We are blended into God. When you take a mixing bowl and you put 4 or 5 ingredients into it, and you start to stir it up, and you blend it, the consistency, the color, the texture changes drastically. All of those pieces are there, but now it has become something else, and it's blended. And once you've done this, you cannot go back and pull out the flour, extract the sugar, remove the cocoa. So what a great idea for us to look at that and think about being blended in God. I am becoming something new, different, beautiful, better because of this blending. And I don't have to try to figure out how to go and remove any of the parts and pieces. It's irrelevant. So let's remember this week. Blended into God. Susie Kasim says, treat your relationship as if you are growing the most beautiful sacred flower. Keep watering it, tend to the roots, and always make sure the petals are full of color and are never curling. Because once you neglect your plant, it will die, as will your relationship. So as we wrap up this month of July regarding relationship, this is a beautiful reminder to us that whatever relationship you have, whomever you are in relationship with, whatever you are in relationship with, it requires constant care. It requires constant attention. It requires constant focus. Because as soon as we turn our focus away As soon as we place it on ignore, it begins to die. And that's something to really pay attention to. So we started out this month by starting with the very central piece of relationship, me, myself, and I. How do I relate with myself? How do I relate to myself? Who am I really? That was the first part of this month's talks. Then we moved on to the you and I are we, where we started to step a little bit outside of self and lift our focus to those around us and know that we are together and we are connected and we are united and we are family. And then the next week we went into the idea of society. What is society? What is community? How am I contributing to all of these other components, these larger mechanisms, these larger groups in the world? And how do I show up in those? And then last week we talked about we are star stuff. You are all star stuff. And so we've taken it from this being that we are individually, and we just started moving it out and getting it bigger and bigger. And now we've expanded it into that whole universal concept that we are made of the same stuff as the stars. That is huge. We need to step a little bit away from that limited thinking that we might have from time to time that says, but I'm only human, and recognize that's not even close to the truth. And then this week, our goal, our focus is to just recognize all that we are with God and in God, because God is in all of this. So how beautiful and expansive this entire month has been. So how do you plan to cultivate the relationships that you have? What do you choose to create in these relationships? And what are the first steps that you might take this week to move forward, to continue to build, to continue to develop the relationships? Eckhart Tolle has a quote for us that says, "You are not separate from the whole. You are one with the sun, the earth, and the air. You don't have a life. You are life." My oldest son loves it when I say that to him. So what can separate us? Just one more glimpse at this. Holding grudges, bitterness, righteous indignation, narcissism, people-pleasing, passive-aggressive behavior, jealousy. These are all ideas that come forth that in our being, when we are experiencing these, we are trying to pull ourselves away from something. Let's let go of that this week. And let's just look into that, being that loving, forgiving, whole being that's willing to surrender and allow and has the faith to know that we will move through this, that there will be more for us and there will be beauty for us and that we can make good things happen. We want to create conscious relationships, and it starts within and then it moves outward from there. And that, my friends, is your homework for this week. Please join me in prayer. So simply breathing into this moment, to this space, to this time, right here and right now, I know and affirm that there is a power, there is a presence, there is a being that is in, of, and through all things. All life is it is all life, and it is God. I call it God. And I know this Godness, this God being lives within me, within each and every person who hears this message, each and every person in this room, and the millions upon millions who aren't even hearing this message are filled with this presence, this being, this truth, this soul connection. Oh, and so as we just breathe that in and recognize the power that that is, we turn our attention this week to all things good and all things God. Every place we look, every thought we have, every conversation, it is all in, of, and through the divine. It's beautiful, and it's perfect, and it's blessed. And so I know right here and right now that all people everywhere are filled with this being, are filled with this opportunity, this support system, this energy, this love that is God and goodness and greatness. And as we go about our lives this week, we are able to share it and express it with others freely, knowing that as we give, we shall also receive, and it just keeps coming back to us in bigger, greater, and more beautiful ways. And so I call it good. I call it perfect. And I know that it is already done in the mind of God. I know that this is simply the truth of our being. So we let it all go. We let it all be. And together we say, and so it is.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.